Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you're new, hi, welcome. My name is Zach. I am a makeup artist and medical esthetician based in Toronto, Canada. And here on YouTube, my goal is to make makeup and skincare as easy as I can for the everyday person like you and me. Today, we are going to be taking a look at some more of the new Holiday 2021 releases. Those include the new Dior Holiday 2021 Atelier Dream Collection, eye palette in House of Dreams, and then I have the blush in Hologlam. And then I also picked up the new trio of Rephr brushes for the holiday. These were the only 3 brushes I was missing for my collection of Rephr. I tried Rephr earlier this year for the first time, fell in love with the brushes, and if you shop their concept store, you can get some really great deals on brushes. So I want to see how these kind of play with the other Rephr brushes I own and see if we can't do a full face using my Rephr brushes. And the other product I really want to look at today is this Huda Beauty GloWish Luminous Press Powder. I did a review on this in the blush a while back, but I didn't love it as a powder foundation, so I'm going to try it today with you all as a finishing powder. I also thought, since we are kind of focusing on some of the new Dior products for holiday 2021, I would grab some of the other Dior products from my collection and see if we can't do a full face using Dior, because there are some products I have from Dior that I'm not the biggest fan of. So I want to see if today we can't try reworking them to make them, see if I like them a little bit more. Without further ado, let's get right into the makeup look. Tatcha the Silk Canvas Liquid Primer. And then for my eye base, I'm gonna use the Hourglass Veil Eye Primer. To prep my lips, I'm gonna kind of do a 2-step method. So I'm gonna start with my Dior Lip Glow. This is in the shade Rosewood. And then I'm gonna lock in that hydration with using the Dior Lip Glow Oil. For foundation, I'm gonna be using the Dior Backstage Face and Body Foundation. This is not one of my favorite foundations. For me, it's not so much the formula, it's the coloring. And I've just had a really difficult time finding a color, hence why I own 3 bottles. So I own 0 CR or 0 Cool Rosy, which is too light, too kind of pale pink. I have 1 in or 1 neutral. This pulls really orange on me. And then I have 1.5 in. This has a better undertone match for me, but it's too dark. So I'm gonna mix the 1.5 in with the 0 CR and see what that does. So with this foundation, I find it applies best with your fingers, so I dot it on my skin, and then I'm going to use my fingers to kind of rub it in like I would a moisturizer. I find this formula is quite similar to the MAC Face and Body in terms of the application. It applies better when it's pressed in and rubbed in with your fingers, because it almost sets down and dries down. When you use your fingers, you can kind of feel it. Whereas if you're using a brush or sponge, you can get a great effect with it. So there is 1 layer on, and excuse my nose is doing a little bit of peeling. I've been doing a series of chemical peels, I've mentioned it before, but I just did my 3rd one a few days ago, and I'm peeling a little bit around my nose. So if you see peeling, that is why. Now I want to smooth this out a little bit, so I'm going to take the new Rephr number 31. This is supposed to be a larger version of the number 17. And here is the Rephr 17, here is the 31, so you can see it is quite a bit larger. So the core collection was the first thing that I ever purchased from Rephr, and this brush was in it, and I've tried using this brush several times. I know many people love this. For me, it's not my favorite brush, and I find recently I don't reach for it just because it's not my favorite for application. So I'm excited to see how this does. I'm going to use this as like a clean brush just to kind of buff over the skin. It will help lift off any product, so you can see slightly some of the extra product is coming off. By using a clean brush, you're going to be taking off that superficial layer of foundation that's just sitting on top of the skin. When you leave that product sitting on top of the skin, it can kind of gather in pores, fine lines, wrinkles, any low points in the face. So by using a brush like this, it's just going to help kind of smooth it out a little bit more. And it just feels like it's setting on top of my skin. It just felt like it looks a little patchy, so I'll come in closer so you can see. I am not going to build it up anymore because I feel like if I build it, it's just going to continue to enhance what's happening. I'm going to add a little bit of concealer. I'm going to use my Dior Forever Skin Correct. I have the shade 1 in. A little too dark for me, but we are going to mix it. So with the Dior concealer, pinch on my chin. And then I'm going to take my Dior Face and Body Foundation. This is the 0CR. And then I'm just going to kind of dot this around where I applied that concealer, because this will help to bring the color down a little bit. I'll also add a little bit more pink to it, so that way it kind of sets better with my natural undertones. Now, Rephr doesn't have a concealer brush, so I'm going to use the number 21. This is a synthetic flat brush. And I'm just going to use this to kind of pat the product out. So I'm just going to kind of tap over with my ring finger. So this will help kind of press it in. I'm almost using my finger like I would a beauty sponge. That's looking better. So I'm going to take that Rephr brush now, the 31. I'm just going to wipe over that, help diffuse out any harsh lines. Okay, so here is foundation and concealer on, and that was using the Rephr number 31 brush, their new large kind of like foundation buffing brush. It's nice. This is one, it's way too soon for me to give a thorough review on this just because it's my first time using it. Initial impression, it's nice. I'm going to have to see how it does, if it's going to be good for actually applying foundation, or if it's going to be something I prefer more for just doing this kind of smoothing out like I did today. But so far so good. This is nice. Before I add any powder, I'm going to take a damp beauty sponge and I'm just going to press over this and see if I can't kind of get this to press into the skin a little bit more. Because for me right now, it's feeling just a little heavy. So since my skin is kind of peeling from where I had a chemical peel done, I am not going to blame the brush or the foundation. I just feel like that's how my skin's responding at the moment. But as far as the kind of settling on the forehead, whenever I use this foundation, that's something I get quite often. And I've given this foundation quite a few tries, so I feel like this is going to be one I pass on to a friend to see if someone else likes it more than I do. To set my face, I'm going to use the Dior Forever Cushion Powder. I picked up this powder during the Nordstrom anniversary sale, so I've had it for a few months. I've got to use it several times. Only downside is I find it really only works with the puff. A brush doesn't really pick up enough powder, and you have to be careful with the puff because you can get way too much product. Oh, and I didn't mention, I have the shade Fair. Take another one of the new Rephr brushes. This is the number 30. Rephr's websites, they kind of put the new 30 brush between the 25 and the 22. The 25 is their powder brush. This is a really nice one, very expensive brush. The number 22 is also an expensive brush. This is the one they call their flagship bronzer brush. I really enjoy it for bronzer. Only thing with this brush for bronzer, it's natural hair, so it does have a cuticle, which is a little bit rougher. So if you are not careful and you pick up too much powder, a natural hair brush will pick up more powder due to that cuticle. You can get a little heavy-handed if you're not careful. The brush number 25, it's a nice large powder brush. You can get a nice kind of sweep. It has more of like a candlestick shape, so that way you can kind of get into the certain areas of the face. For me though, I'm very happy I picked this up. It was either in their concept store or their secret store, and I got this for a really good price. Here in Canada, this brush retails at full price for $168. While it's nice, I just don't know if it's $168 worth of nice. So I'm going to use the new number 30 brush. This is just going to help flick off any of that excess. That way things won't get too heavy looking. For highlighter, I'm going to be using the Dior Forever Couture Luminizer. I have the shade 02 Pink Glow, and I'm going to be applying this with the Rephr number 20 brush. I feel like the number 20 fan brush from Rephr and this Dior Luminizer, they are a match made in heaven. You can get such a beautiful effect when using them together. And the Rephr fan brush, it's a really nice one. Compared to some other fan brushes, it has a little bit more density to it, but it's large so you can get a nice highlight. And if you ever have a highlight that's a little too intense, this is going to just give you a soft wash that's going to almost give it more of a blurring property versus a really metallic finish. Dior Forever Bronzer, I have the shade 05 Warm Bronze. For a while, this was the lightest shade we had here in Canada. I believe there's 8 shades altogether, and I saw recently Sephora started stocking shade number 4. So maybe in the future I'll get it, but this formula and this color I quite enjoy, even though it is a little bit darker. So I'm going to use the Rephr number 22, that is the bronzer brush, and I'll start back and blend in. I'm using bronzer to add a little bit of warmth to the perimeter of my face. It will add a little bit of framing to the look. It will help structure things a little bit. My Rephr #1, so this is more of like a blending brush. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of that Dior bronzer, and I am just going to keep my eyes relaxed and run this through my socket. This will help add a little bit of definition to the socket because most of the shades in the Dior Dream Street palette, they all look like they have a little bit of a light reflect to them, so this will just help add a little bit of shape to the eye. And for me, since I do have more of a heavy hooded eyelid, I like to find the really kind of fleshy point right here on the outer corner, and I start my shadow there. That way that point has the most color payoff, and then I'll use that to help kind of press back that fold. And then when I get here to this outer corner, I'll just kind of flick it up towards the tail of my brow. That'll also add a little bit of lift, so that way you're addressing the hood and the downturned outer corner of the eye by creating some visual depth and lift. Dior Backstage Rosy Glow Blush. This is a very pigmented blush. It does kind of tone adjust based on the moisture content in your skin. I am going to use a very little bit of this so that blush fairy doesn't look like it's attacked me again. The Rephr #24, this is their blush brush, towards the center of my cheek, and apply a little bit, step back, do the other side. Now I suggest stepping back and doing a little bit, going to the other side, because if you continue to build on one side until you're happy with the level of color, odds are you're not going to give the color time to develop, because this color does take time to develop. It kind of has a little reaction, and then you'll get more of that pinky flush. If you build it up to where you can see the color, then you wait, it's going to be too much. So add a little bit, step back, move to the other side, and keep going. And I want to use the blush to almost frame the eyes, so I'm going to take a little bit just right out here and kind of sweep it into the blush. And you'll notice I'm almost taking it up and around. This will once again help create a pull-up effect, and it'll just help lift that outer corner of the eye, but where you're tying it into the blush, it's going to be very, very subtle, and it's just going to give the eyes a little bit of something to pull the attention here, so that way it's creating more of that lifted effect. Whatever's left on my brush, I'm going to take it right over the bridge of the nose and over the chin, because once again, holidays, cold, sometimes windy, and then wind will cause the skin to react and we can get a little bit of flush. So I'm going to recreate that winter flush on the places where my skin normally flushes. So that's kind of sides of the forehead, bridge of the nose, and the chin. We're going to go into that House of Dreams eyeshadow palette. There are two different brush trios. So then there's a standard set and there's one for hooded eyes. I already owned all the brushes they have in the hooded eye set, so I'm going to use those to give you a preview if you choose the hooded eye brush set, the look you could achieve. The Rephr #2 brush. This is a little flat packing brush, and I'm going to go into the peachy shade in the top left. And I'm just going to apply this from lash to brow as a base color. On second thought, this has a little bit more of a light reflect than I anticipated, so I'm just going to apply this from lash up to where that bronzer shade starts in the socket. So it's very subtle. So here is the top left peachy shade on this eye, and here's without. It's got quite a bit of a translucency to it. It's also very, very close to my skin tone, so I'm personally not seeing a ton of color payout. I'm going to add another layer on, and this time I'm going to focus on pressing and pulling the shade across just to see if I can get a little bit more color payoff. I got a little bit more, but it's, for me and my skin tone, it's a very subtle shade. If you're lighter than me, this might be a really pretty kind of like nice kind of light medium tone. If you're darker than me, be a little careful, because these kind of light peachy tones, if they are too light for the skin, they can almost pull gray. The Rephr #13 brush. This is more of like a short, stubby kind of blending brush, and I'm going to go into this more mid-tone mauve color in the bottom left and pick that up right up on the point, and then I want to kind of start sketching it here into this outside corner. So I'm starting to create quite a kind of soft V shape here. So I'm noticing these shadows are quite hard pressed, so you kind of have to scrape at it a little bit to get some of the color payoff, but once you get through that kind of like top layer, you can build up a nice bit of color intensity. focusing on stopping that darker shade right at the outer corner of my eye and then lifting it upwards. That's going to create a little bit of a lift to the eye shape. Starting to get this nice kind of like smoky outer edge. At Rephr number 1 that I used to apply the bronzer, the side or the belly of the brush, and go into that more kind of light mid-tone taupey mauve color. Focus this on the middle of my eye and drag it over towards the outside corner. You can get a nice kind of smoky effect with this palette. You are just going to have to build up the shades, kind of layer them a little bit. So I'm going to mix together the last 2 shades we used on a Rephr number 13. I'm going to look up and I'm going to use this to smoke out my lower lash line. And then when I get to this outside corner, I'm just going to flick it up to meet that first shade we applied. The Rephr number 3, this is a pointed kind of pencil brush. I'm going to go into that silver shade in the middle. If it's a little scattered, that's okay, because it's almost going to kind of create this like slight fairy light effect on the inside corner of the eye. The Rephr number 14 brush, no product on it, and I am just going to go on the perimeter of everything we have just done to kind of blend and feather and smoke out that color. The Rephr number 29, dark shade in the bottom right of the palette. Pick it up right on the point of the brush, and I'm going to use this to kind of line this outer third of my eye. The number 13 brush, I'm going to go into that darker of the 2 kind of pale mauve colors, and I'm just going to gently buff over that little dark flick that we applied. And that will just kind of help smoke it out. That way everything is just kind of more kind of soft and diffused. So I wiped off any residual product on my Rephr number 1, and I'm going to go back into that peachy shade that we used as an all-over base. And I'm just going to use this kind of soften up the inner corner. There we go. So off camera, I just put on some mascara and did my brows. So for mascara, I used the Charlotte Tilbury push-up liner, and then I used the Dior Show Plump and Brow Gel for my brows. So I want to check out the blush that came with the collection. This is number 601 Hologlam, and once again, it has a really beautiful embossing on it. The Rephr number 5, this is their soft kind of cheek brush, and I'm going to use this almost like a cheek topper. So this is going to go right over top of the blush and the highlight. So this is a really beautiful blush. It's quite a peachy pink color, but it has a transparency. And then if you look at it really close, it has a little bit of a blue, purple, and pink kind of micro shimmer to it. Adds just a nice shift to the cheek, so when your cheek catches the light, it adds this very ethereal quality to it. So for lips, I just removed my lip balm, and I'm going to use my Dior lip pencil in the shade Grayish to line and slightly fill my lips. Rouge Dior refillable lipstick, this is the shade number 219 Rose Montang, Dior Lip Maximizer in pink to add a little bit of a glossy sheen to it. So now I'm going to try buffing my skin, and I'm going to use that Huda Beauty GloWish Luminous Pressed Powder, the Rephr number 25 brush, and I'm just going to use this to buff over. Here is one half my face with the Huda Beauty GloWish Luminous Pressed Powder to buff. Here's the other side without. So this did help tone down everything. It kind of created more of a soft, blurry, almost watercolor effect. The Dior Air Flash Radiance Mist in number 001. I'm really happy with how this came out. As soon as I started doing the eyes, I started to kind of get the vision in my mind. I kind of had an idea of what we were creating, and then when we added that silver onto the inner corner of the eye with that nice kind of Hologlam blush topper over the blush and highlight, and in my mind when I was doing this, all I could think about is a scene from one of my favorite movies growing up, which was called Ever After with Drew Barrymore. It was kind of like a take on a Cinderella movie, and there's this really beautiful scene at the end of the movie where she gets to go to like the ball, and she has like these beautiful wings, and her eye makeup is just very kind of soft and ethereal, and it has these like metallic kind of elements, because you know it was like late 90s, early 2000s, so even though it's supposed to be like a period piece, it still had some modern, or at that time modern elements thrown into it, which this is nice. It just has that nice kind of like ethereal effect that adds a little bit of twinkle, a little bit of pep. The eyes are quite cool toned, but by adding that warmer blush topper and lip, it just kind of creates a nice synergistic feel to the look. So I'm very, very happy with this. The Hologlam blush is not something I would wear as a single blush, but worn as a topper on top of another shade, it's really, really beautiful. The Dream Street palette is really, really pretty. I do find compared to some of my other palettes that this is quite hard pressed, and my friend Lena from Lena Lure mentioned this. She did a really beautiful review on this and some of the lipsticks from the collection. That is a great one. I'll link her down below so you can check her out, but she did a really lovely review on this as well. And these are a little bit more hard pressed, so that's kind of twofold. With being slightly more hard pressed, you are going to get this really beautiful embossment. That means you have to really dig into the embossment and kind of ruin the beautiful aesthetic of it to get the product out. So it's a give take. So you get a pretty visual, but then you kind of have to mess up that beautiful visual to get the product out. And then as far as the Rephr brushes, the eye brushes, they're all great. I really enjoy them. The new face brushes, they are okay. I need to play with both of them a little bit more. The number 30 brush seemed like a nice large fluffy powder brush. And then the number 31, which is that kind of slanted foundation brush, it was nice, but I need to play with it more to kind of figure out what's my preferred way to use it, and then I can come back later and give you a better review on this one. And I didn't use the number 32. This is that shorter kind of angled brush. I'm not quite sure how I'm gonna use this one. Maybe we'll do a contouring video again, and I'll show you how I use something like this to contour the nose, lip, things like that, because it's a quite small angled brush that were really good for kind of chiseling out features if you like to contour. That leaves the rest of the Rephr brushes I have that I didn't get to. Overall, I really, really enjoy all the brushes. The only exception is the number 17. This is just one I haven't found the way it works best for me. I'm not a huge fan of the shape. I don't like how it performs with liquids. With powders, I find it a little too short, stubby, and dense, so I get too much product with it. So this is a weird one. I just need to play with more before I can figure out how I like to use it best for me. The rest of the brushes are great though. I also own Rephr's lash curler. It's really nice. I just don't curl my lashes a ton anymore. Not sure why. I also have Rephr's brush soap, and I just keep it on this cute little cat dish I picked up at Omomo, and it was $2. So this is my little kind of like brush soap dish. I really love Rephr's brush soap. Now, it's a twofold love. Like, in one aspect, I really, really enjoy it. The other aspect, not so much. So I love the Rephr brush soap for cleaning natural hair brushes. They feel extremely soft, clean, and conditioned, so it's almost like a 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioning treatment for my brushes. And on the other hand, for a brush that's synthetic like my VK Beauty brushes, it will kind of get the makeup out of the brush, but then I find that slight conditioning feeling that's beautiful on the natural hair brushes. It can make a synthetic brush feel kind of greasy, so then you have to clean it again to kind of strip away that conditioning aspect. So since these are synthetic, the hair fiber isn't the same as a natural hair. Natural hair, it's like our hair on our head. It gets rough. You need to kind of give a little extra love, whereas that kind of love that you'd put into a natural hair brush on a synthetic brush, it can make these feel a little greasy and slimy, so I just use my Beauty Blender Solid Cleaner. What do you think of the products? Did you pick up any of these products? Let me know down below. And then, so I'll also have Lena's review where she did this palette as some of the lipsticks. And then I'll also put a link to my friend Maria from Nightstar Beauty's channel down below. She did a review on this one and the more warm brownie gold palette. So if you're curious about that one, I'll have the link to her channel down below so you can see a review on that palette as well. I hope you enjoyed the look today. I hope you enjoyed seeing some like reviews and thoughts on some of these new holiday products. If you did, make sure you give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel, and that you think might enjoy it. I will see you all on the next video. Bye, y'all.